You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network. Visit pencilandpaperproductions.podbean.com to find more great podcasts.
I'm Katrina, and I love anime.
I'm Stephen, and I'm aware of anime.
But what if that affection could rub off?
Perhaps that excitement in her eyes got me curious.
I could offer up some solid anime.
I could give them a watch, just to see what all the fuss is about.
And maybe, just maybe,
I could learn to love anime too.
Welcome to Inspired by a Weeaboo. Welcome back, my Weeaboo family. We just finished episode 12, the final episode of Death Parade. I am your host, Katrina, and with me is my husband, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what did you think?
It's a little anticlimactic. I mean, we got some closure, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I guess I was looking for a little bit more insight into what the overall hidden, mystery behind everything was. It just, I felt like they were trying to set something up, but yet this was it. And I feel like if you wanted to set this up, you needed to continue on and maybe explore it a little bit more, but that's it.
Yes, it definitely is one of those where you kind of hope for another season. But as far as I know, and I've never heard anything to the contrary, but as far as I know, this is the one and only.
I mean, considering it's dated 2015,
yeah,
it's been 4 years.
I mean, then again, fully coolly, I've said that before. It freaking aired forever ago, and they are just now coming out with a new season. So,
but again, this goes to my perception of what I was kind of hoping for versus what it is. And I spoke about it at length on a previous episode. I'm taking the narrative as it is. I'm not saying I could have written something better.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just, I guess I wasn't sure what I was expecting, and then what I got was kind of like, I didn't expect that. Okay, so essentially we see kind of a recap of where we saw Deckham with what's her name? Chi. I don't know why I blanked out on her name. With Chi holding her like we said she was doing to the last episode. And then we had a recap of Oculus and Nona's little thing, but then that kind of expanded a little bit where he was calling her out on the whole Deckham thing. Yes. Saying that all arbiters have to be dummies. That's it. That's what we are. That's what everything is. We're all dummies. Mm-hmm. And he just, I don't know, seemed to just enforce this idea that this is the way things are and you just got to live with it. It's the way it is.
Yeah. And
she was just like, well, things need to change. Things need to change. But she never would kind of expand on that at that moment. It was just like, things can change. He's like, nope, this is life. This is it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of go back to the main story, which is Deckham and Chi. He goes to Clavis. I don't know why I want to keep calling him Clovis. Clavis.
Yes.
Like a clavicle. He goes to Clavis and tells him to take them to the lowest level.
Yep.
Now, do we know what the lowest level is? Did they ever specify what the lowest level is supposed to be?
It's just where the dummies, basically so like the trash heap, I guess you could kind of say.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
So they go down there and as we kind of said before, he kind of knocked her out, I guess, in a way. So she kind of has this little fleeting memory for a moment, and then suddenly she wakes up and she's seemingly home and alive, and she's just like, whoa, what's going on here, trying to figure it all out. And like she's in her old room, like nothing's changed, and then she hears her mom, and then suddenly Deckham walks in and she's starting to realize, well, okay, well, maybe I'm not. So she's still confused, as we are as well, trying to understand what she's trying to understand.
Yeah.
And then she's exploring her house. She's seeing everything, but everything seems kind of cold and empty. And she has memories of her life in the home. And suddenly her mom actually appears.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're kind of under the assumption that they're like ghosts or spirits, phantoms in this world.
Yeah.
Because her mom is kind of talking to her, but we know she's not talking to her. She can't see him. She can't see either one of them, but
Yeah.
she is talking to Chi, as if she was there, but we kind of get a sense that she's just speaking to the idea of her there.
Yes.
Because she has a little, I don't even want to call it a shrine, but I guess it would be a memoriam.
Yeah, I think they are kind of considered shrines in a way. People who know, Asian culture and stuff like that, they'll usually have a small cabinet that will have a picture and incense and just various things that the person who had passed had in their lifetime. And for Chi, it had, her picture. It had a keychain with roller skates, good Lord, ice skates. Had the characters from the Chavo book, had the actual book, and just like a little memorial for her. And that's, what her mom was talking to. So I guess it kind of in the sense of how, we kind of visit gravestones and, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, her mom's, talking to her and everything, and just kind of goes on about her business.
And then Deckham kind of takes her outside, and then she's like, why'd you bring me here? What are you doing? And then he tries to lay it out for her as, just kind of wanted to gauge your, your emotions here, kind of see what you're doing, but I'm going to make you a deal.
Mm-hmm.
He says, how about he pulls out that little wand that they've had numerous times over. He pulls it out and says, you press this button and you can live again. You can have a life again. But got to trade a life. And I felt like this was that moment that could kind of tie into that, the last episode where I was complaining about Ginty.
Yeah, the Ginty
because
episode.
They reuse this idea that's something that kind of can be played upon, this trickery of, hey, you trade a life for a life and then everything will be fine. Yeah. But they didn't attach it enough for me to still feel like that story wasn't worthless. So, but again, they kind of touched on that idea again. So I'll give it a little bit of a pass, but not by much, because the idea itself still works here, and it really didn't need to be explored in that other story either. But I'm just saying.
Well, I will say something when you're done explaining the rest of this, because in one of the final scenes there is kind of a little hint of something. So I'll let you continue, and then I'll throw that in and see if it changes your opinion on the other episode.
Perhaps.
Okay, continue.
Well, anyway, she's offered that choice, and she doesn't really seem like she has a choice in the matter at first. And then she kind of looks back and she hears her mom talking to the shrine and just kind of lamenting about everything in her life and Chi's life, and maybe she didn't quite understand what she was going through, and just, like this flood of emotions finally just hits her, like she wasn't paying attention to Chi. She doesn't understand what she was going through, and that she failed her, and then she's just breaking down.
It was very emotional.
Yeah, and
I
then
started to get very teary-eyed, and I've seen it before.
Chi, as well, is starting to realize what she did, that everything that her mom's going through, she is let's say directly.
She's responsible.
She's responsible in a way because she took her life, so she is causing this pain on her mom and she starts calling herself selfish, and why did she do this, and I didn't mean to do that. So when she starts thinking about the idea of taking someone's life, because again, before that moment, she was weighing the options. She wasn't necessarily for it or against it, but she was like, I can, do that. I can have my life back. I mean, kind of like the thinking about it, but there wasn't really a solid, I can't do this, or sure, I'm going to do this. It was just kind of like this back and forth. But at this point, she's like, I can't do it because that's selfish of me to take away someone that matters to someone else because she even starts remembering past guests.
Yeah, well, at first she was going to push the button. She told Decum.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes, she told when her mom started crying and she realized, what she did to her mother, and she just wanted to tell her it wasn't her fault and she loved her. And she was going to push the button, and right before she pushed it, she started having these flashbacks of all the other guests that they have been through and everything else. And it hits her that, just because she wants to be with her mom, sacrificing somebody else isn't right because they matter to somebody.
Yeah.
And Decum points out, well, you wouldn't know them. They wouldn't matter to you. And she said that doesn't matter. They matter to someone just like how she mattered to her mom.
And in that moment, Decum broke because it was like it hit him. Like that understanding of that choice, that emotional choice, like struck a chord with him in a way that it was just like unexpected to him. He's like, oh my God, I get it. And like, it's just, he's becoming overwhelmed with emotion.
Because at this point, Chi is like in full meltdown, crying, remorseful and everything kind of mode. So you just see kind of Decum, struggling with those feelings. And then he starts, like grasping at his chest and everything, like it's hurting. And at that point, Chi gets up in desperation and starts begging him to press the button. To just do it for her, press it, bring her back to life, because then she's not doing it, it'd be him doing it. And then he really breaks and starts crying.
And then he essentially shatters the world around them.
Yes.
Just like an emotional breakdown, literally and figuratively, where all of this that was going on was nothing more than a charade to get her to do something so he can judge her.
Exactly.
So it really kind of exposed this deception of the matter. So it, I don't know. It was in that moment, he apologized. He said, I needed to do this. And just, I couldn't understand it.
He was crying. He was upset. And
essentially held her and just broke down crying. Like really coming into his emotions fully in a way that we've never seen him before. Because as I've, if you go all the way back, I mentioned how stone cold he was.
Yes.
And it was just like, I'm a robot. I am a robot. And then now he's, but you understand why now.
And even his eyes changed.
Yeah, they
no longer had the crosses. They actually look human. So, and Chi realized that too. And then, of course, after everything got exposed, she wasn't hateful towards him or blamed him or anything like that. And he, was apologizing and saying it was his job. He was an arbiter. This is what he has to do. He has to judge people. And she realized that the toll it was taking on him and embraced him in a hug. And then they both just cried. So it was definitely very, very, very emotional.
Although I will say I'm not saying I wasn't moved in a way that I got it, but I didn't weep. And I have weeped. You've seen me weep?
I've seen you weep with Logan.
Yeah. That hit me in an emotional way that, it's much more personal.
Granted, there are some animes where grown men cry and you can get kind of whippy or weepy, but Decum, he has that ugly cry where it's like the mouth gets really big and it's just like really kind of cringy, ugly cry. But I mean, I got weepy with the mother and everything.
That.
Like that kind of stuff made me weepy. But I mean, with Deckham, it was still kind of sad because you're like, oh, poor baby boy. But I mean, other than that, you know, they move past it and they get up and she's asking about the room that they're in. And he explains that this is where the bodies are discarded once the souls leave. And she makes the comment of, oh, this is where I'm going to end up. And Deckham says no. And she understands that, you know, he's going to end up taking her vessel, I guess you could say, just like he did a lot of the other ones. So, you know, it ends with her getting into the elevator and she, you know, they're just kind of talking everything, and he tells her that, you know, he was, again, happy to get to know her and all that kind of stuff. And she tells him that he needs to try to smile. And, of course, his smile was really freaking creepy because he does not understand the concept quite yet.
If you've ever seen the special, I guess you'd call it director's cut of Terminator 2, where Arnold Schwarzenegger was trying to smile as a Terminator, it's kind of that, you know, that kind of, not that weird and creepy, but there's still just like this odd, it's like, don't smile.
Trying too hard. But before the elevator door closes, she's looking at Deckham, and Deckham actually smiles. And it's very faint. Like, it's not a big, you know, teeth-bearing grin, but as
a smirk.
Yeah. Oh, not really a smirk either, because when I think smirk, I think of, like, you know, kind of smuggish. But just a very faint smile. Like that, you know, he's happy for her. And she gives him one of those big grins, and she gets to be reincarnated. So that's where Chi's story ends. It was definitely a ride.
but now let's talk about the others, because this is where I got kind of I felt like we were short shafted, because granted, I was happy to see that her story came to a close. We got to understand her. And I felt like if you focused, not that I want to see this become a movie or anything like that, but if someone were to try and take a live action, you know, adaptation of this, you focus on her, you focus on him, really drive some of the points home about him trying to understand who he is and then trying to judge her. You really focus on the emotional points of it. You can cut out all this other bullshit about him having human emotions and then just saying, well, maybe he's understanding it kind of like a robot would or something like that, and learning by it. Because, again, they didn't go into great detail about this, because we go back to Oculus and Nona, and she's like, well, he's calling, he's like, well, there you go, this is your failed experiment. And she's like, yeah, but it had to happen. We needed to figure it out because judgment needs suffering. And they never explained the details as to why. It's just
I think, well, she does make the comment, it's not just her belief system, but she does make the comment that they just can't throw around judgment, which is kind of what you could perceive what Ginty did.
Yeah, he does.
And even in that first episode, you know, if Deckham would have had those human emotions, if they would have developed further, he might have realized where the wife was coming from. And therefore, she would have most likely been reincarnated instead of sent to the void. It was for lack of human emotions that she got sent to the void, because he couldn't understand it. So I think that's what Nona was trying to put out there, is that they, you know, they're not just dummies. They each have their own personalities. They each get, I mean, Ginty gets upset. Nona gets upset. I mean, they joke around, they kid around and everything else. And that's one of the things Nona tells Oculus, is that they're not just dummies. They're not just these lifeless objects. You know, they have feelings and everything else. And that's what she was trying to get the point across with Deckham, is that that's what they need. Even if they can't die and they never technically lived, they still need those emotions to be able to pass judgment on humans. Because I guess, again, going back to the whole robot thing, that would be like a robot deciding who should live and who should die. And you can't do that without living. And I think that's what she was trying to drive home. And that's what needed to change.
But then how could they consider Deckham a failed experiment? He just proved that that's what it needs.
Oculus considered it a failed experiment because he says that Nona broke him. But Nona doesn't really see it as him breaking.
No, he didn't break. I feel like it was more he embraced the idea of it more.
Yeah. But to Oculus, again, he wants them to be dummies. He doesn't want them to have emotions. He doesn't want them to be able to feel things on a human level.
But clearly he has no say in the matter. Otherwise, he would have shut that shit down. Mm-hmm. So, again, I feel like his whole purpose in this was pointless.
Yeah. That's where I kind of feel like where it would have been, or where it would be better to have another season, because then you could play more on it, because they pretty much leave the series with Nona and Quinn and the other chick, I can't remember her name.
I don't either.
But they pretty much leave them with saying, well, you know, you did it. And, you know, where do we go from here? There's so many arbiters. What do we do? And Nona says to do nothing. That, you know, it'll pretty much play out. So it's, I guess you could look at it as in they planted a seed and things will change eventually. But it's not going to be, you know, a drop of the hat type. Everything just fixes itself.
But from a narrative standpoint, the character of Oculus is literally pointless. You could have played the idea of questioning the need for emotions with any other character, Ginty especially. You could have played that on him.
Well, that's one of the things I actually wanted to point out, is at the very end, when Clavis goes to Ginty's bar, Ginty's sitting there and he's polishing one of his dolls. And Clavis was asking about the cat, and he says, you know, the cat, she doesn't come around anymore. And, you know, we got this sense from Ginty that he doesn't care about people. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he doesn't care about humans. He's made that very, you know, point blank. And in the instance of the two people that he had at his bar, you know, we saw what they did to him, or what he did to them, and sent them to the void and everything else. Well, when he sets down that doll, it is the girl, the one that he sent to the void with the singer. And, you know, he had all these other dolls and everything else. So what I take away from it is that he has that same kind of attachment that Deckham does.
He just doesn't like to show it.
Yeah, kind of. I feel like these are people that in some way made him feel something, and she was definitely the one we saw where she was, you know, yelling at him and questioning, you know, his life and everything else. And I feel like that's why he made the doll of her.
Okay, well, see, now, with that little piece, makes it slightly more understandable that they'll put it in there, that this was somebody who hated humans, just dismissed them, wanted nothing more to do with them, and then just one group, or at least one girl, got to him. You know? Yeah. Okay, so maybe that subplot has some slight merit. But again, Oculus, you could have written that as any
I think they just had to have some form of a protagonist, because
but you could have made that anybody, because
but Nona's not really a protagonist. She's always been on Deckham's side.
You're talking about an antagonist is what you're saying.
Yeah, sorry, antagonist.
But again, you could have easily made that Ginty.
But I don't feel like it would work for Ginty because he's under Nona. Oculus is above Nona.
Yeah, but he never displayed any form of power play whatsoever other than that one moment with Clavis, and that
he
even
did
still
try to attack Nona, but she's just fucking awesthen and like jumped and flipped and everything else
that
out
was
of
like
his way.
that was barely an attack. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna grab you. And then she moved and he's like, oh well. And that was it. Yeah. So it was no battle, there was no fight. So it just felt again like, dude, if you're in charge, then if you don't like it, you can shut this shit down. But you didn't.
It kind of makes you wonder if he is in fact in charge. Because he makes the comment to Nona that she's a dummy just like him.
Well, all I'm saying is...
we need another season to explain everything, damn it.
Yeah, if you want me to not argue that Oculus is a pointless character, then I need some more understanding of this character.
There we
because
go.
For me, personally, all you did was say, well, he's like God. Okay, what's your point?
Yeah.
You didn't do anything. All you did was just be like, you can't have... I'm just going to recite these rules 100 times over. Okay.
Which they do.
Yeah,
They
he's the
do.
one who said these rules several times. They repeated them at the ass end of this episode.
With one extra.
Yeah,
because it was 3 rules.
Came from his mouth.
Came from, a 4th one, which was basically, playing back on they can't have human emotions because, it'll like break them
but
or
again,
whatever. But
there's no point to that. It was just like, I'm in charge, so I'm going to make another rule. So what? It's not like it's going to change anything. The point of the story
is Stephen does not like Oculus from Death Parade.
No, he's a pointless character. Like Clavis. But at least, you know what? At least Clavis is there. He has a job, and he knows what he's doing. All Oculus does is play pool and just be like, where's Nona? I'm going to recite some rules.
I know. He really likes Nona. It's kind of creepy in a way.
And then she's like, Nona, you can't be doing these things. Well, I'm just going to go back to my tower. Well, you didn't do anything.
He didn't.
All he did was just question shit and then went back to his tower. Didn't do anything. It's pointless. True. You could have written that without him. Put anybody else. Everybody else around Nona could have questioned what she was doing.
But everybody else around Nona was on their side.
I know they're under her.
But they were on her side, too.
But you could have had them question what she was doing. Like, do you really think this is a good idea? And there could be consequences. It could be anything. Just questioning, because that's all he did. Question it. He didn't do anything. All this build-up for what? I'm gonna grab you with my hair. Nah. Fine. I'm gonna go back to my tower and play pool. So I'm gonna write another rule.
Is this your overall thought of Death Parade?
It's definitely one of those that I would lean more into, like Death Note that I've mentioned. That would be something that's more intriguing to me. The concept is ideal. It's funny, I seem to like the death ones. I don't know why. I'm not obsessed with death, but the complexity of the story, how they tell it, the themes that they kind of touch on, I think that's what intrigues me about it. I'd really like to actually sit down and watch it without being observant for a podcast.
Yeah.
Just kind of shoot through it and just be like, maybe I can understand what Oculus is doing other than just being a creep. But I don't think my views on him are going to change. But I feel like it's not perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like it's got just some if they could have just tightened up a few things. But again, at 12 episodes, I mean, I don't know how much more tighter you could have got it.
That is true. And it is based off of a movie.
Yeah.
So
a short movie.
Yeah. So it is based off that. So I mean, I guess technically from that kind of aspect, they didn't have a whole lot to work with, but still, it would be one of those where you could make another season or more. I mean, various seasons based around each character. Introduce more, because there are a shit ton of arbiters, and you only ever meet a few of them.
But like you said, we're talking about if they base this off. This reminds me saying they based this series off of a short movie.
Yes.
Very much like if if you've ever heard of the movie Sling Blade, it was based off of a short film, and essentially the beginning of Sling Blade was that short film. Condensed, in a nutshell. So it was like 30 minutes, and then that was that movie. And then they just kind of went from there and said, all right, let's recreate this and then expand on that. So that's probably what they did here. They had a basic idea and then just said, all right, let's expand on it. But they didn't know how much to expand on. They didn't really have a lot to expand on.
Yeah.
And hence probably why we only got one season, because maybe they weren't really sure what to do with the characters or where they wanted them to go, and they just had this simple idea.
I would definitely, if I could ever find the movie and watch it, I would definitely want to give it a watch, because from what I understood when they were, or the little bit that I read about it, it seems to be based around that one episode of the billiards, because it's called like Death Billiards. So the one episode with the detective and the boy, the darkest fucking episode. Yeah. So it seems to be based around that one.
So I don't really see that one being a turning point.
Yeah. So I would like to watch it. It could be different characters. I know that it does say, for a fact, Deckham is obviously in the short movie and everything, but that's the episode that it seems to be based around, or what this the 12 episodes got based around, in a sense, is the characters that were in that one episode. So I would definitely like to give it a watch, just to see what it was about in its original form. Yeah,
I mean, ideas like that are usually interesting, because I think I went and looked up the Sling Blade short movie, and it's, I guess when you're exposed to one before the other, it's hard to kind of take it at face value. Yeah. Because you're just like, it's kind of a bastard version of what I'm aware of. It's how I feel about The Office.
That's how I feel about a certain anime.
Which one?
Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, yeah.
I can't say grew up, because, I was already older when I watched it. But, I mean, not like old, but anyway, I was in high school. You were first
exposed to.
Yes, and I watched the original Full Metal Alchemist, which, for those of you who know the anime, it's kind of starts off based off of the manga, but the manga was not finished, so they kind of went off away from the candidness of it. And then a few years back, they made Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is completely supposed to be verbatim based off of the manga. And so many people who watch the original do not like Full Metal, or do not like Brotherhood. But then you do have some who are like, well, Brotherhood's so much better because it's based off of the manga and everything else. Well, because I have such a deep, passionate love for Full Metal Alchemist, I have never been able to watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I nitpick at everything because it's not what I'm used to, even though it's the real story or the true story. I can't do it. And I've never been able to. And I've tried watching it, and I'm just like, that's not how it happened in the original. That's not how it happened in the original. Even though Brotherhood is right and the other one technically isn't. But it just, I don't know. I can't do it. And I've even had a buddy of mine who, kind of grew up watching the original and then watched Brotherhood. And he told me to look at it as almost like a parallel universe type thing. And I'm like, well, maybe if I look at it like that going into it, maybe I can watch it. I have not given it a chance yet. So maybe eventually down the road I can do it. But it's just...
Could possibly do it here because I've never watched it.
Yeah, I mean, I want you to see the one that I watched originally, though, and then we can go into Brotherhood.
But who knows? I might have a different opinion. I might watch the Brotherhood and be like, oh, this is amazing.
You have to watch the original first.
That's not, how does that go?
Because I've seen the original first, and then we can watch Brotherhood together because I haven't seen Brotherhood other than like the first few episodes. But anyway, I completely forgot the point I was trying to make as I went on my
I was
tangent.
saying that, sometimes you get these skewed perspectives when you see one over the other, because everybody I've ever talked to who's watched The Office was Steve Carell and, whomever else is on the show here, John Krasinski. I know he's popular now. They're just like, oh my gosh, the American Office is awesome. I watched the Ricky Gervais UK version first, and I love it. And I've tried watching the US. I can't do it. It's just, it feels like a bastard version.
Yeah.
And I've heard quite the opposite. Those who've seen the American try to watch the UK, they can't do it because it's not their version.
Yeah.
That's what I was exposed to first, and that's where my heart lies, because that was hilarious. It was funny. And then when I see them trying to do those same characters, even though they are not the same characters, but they are, they are in essence those characters. It's just like, it's not those characters. I don't like them because I know who they're trying to be, but they're not them. They're just knockoffs to me. So I get it. I get when there's remakes and stuff like that. There are some good remakes. There are some that are just meh. They don't do it so well. I feel like one movie that's been remade 3 times, let's say 2 by the original story, is King Kong. And each remake adds a little element that is interesting. And you're just like, okay, I like what they're doing. But there's always something wrong with it, too. Like, they haven't quite nailed it, I feel like. I mean, unless you want to go back to the original. But even still, I would even say, like, Peter Jackson's version, the problem with it is so damn long. It's a 3-hour Kong movie, and you're like, Jesus Christ, man, move it along. We didn't come here for a sweeping epic like that. This is King Kong. But one thing I appreciate that he did that none of the others did is his emotional connection with the female protagonist with Kong is much more understanding and believable. If you go back and look at Fay Wray or Jessica Lange and the other remakes, they don't want anything to do with Kong. Yeah. It's always like, and then just run away. She's like, you know what? I want to run, but I kind of see that you're going to protect me, so I'm okay here.
Yeah.
And then when, at the end, she's not like, oh, get away from me, Kong. She's like, yeah, hey, let's hang out. There's a much more relatable connection there. She's not afraid of him.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that added element. But again, too long. Other movies, the women are just like, oh my God, Kong, don't hurt me. And then it's like, oh, but you're my friend. Oh God, get away from me. Oh, you're my friend again. Oh my God. It's just this back and forth. It's like, stop toying with him. And that's why he's pissed.
Yeah. Well, out of a 5-star rating, which is what, Funimation and Netflix and all that kind of stuff does. Out of a 5-star rating, what would you rate Death Parade?
I'll give it a 4. I'll be generous. Because, again, overall, a lot of the stories were good. And I just feel like there were certain elements that could have been done without or tightened. But again, trying to stretch. I'm sure they were trying to aim for a decent season.
Yeah.
So 12 episodes, I'm sure that can be tricky. And, I complained, but not to a point. Some felt like filler, but then there were some that were more set up. So I understood that they needed them there.
Yeah.
So I'd say 4 is generous because it allows, I do say it's a really good, I'd recommend people checking it out, but do understand there are a few hiccups.
Yeah. I mean, you get that with a lot of anime. Obviously with 12 episodes, this one's nowhere as bad as a lot of the anime, which has, hundreds of episodes. You're going to have filler episodes, plain and simple. But, some people, some people really enjoy the filler episodes. Other people care to watch just, the normal anime without the fillers and everything else. So I can understand both. Filler episodes never really bothered me unless they just went way the hell off into left field and you're just like, where's this fit in with the story?
Well, I know we talked about filler episodes before, but we just saw the other day there was what would technically be a filler episode for the X-Files. But it was such an entertaining episode. It was about a writer doing a book. Jose Chung, I think was his name. And
it was a very interesting episode.
Yeah, and it was just the way the narratives are being told from other people about these abductions and aliens and everything like that. And if you've probably seen the show, you may know what I'm talking about. It's been a long time since, so I didn't remember this episode, but there were humorous moments about it. Like some guy, when they were talking, he would say, "Hey, is somebody on the bleeping phone? Who's this bleeping guy?" And then it was just like, well, he didn't technically say bleeping. So you kind of get the sense that we're hearing what this guy's saying, but not for television. So it was a very amusing episode, but it really does define a filler episode. It didn't progress any kind of plot points through the overarching narrative, but it was still an amusing episode.
Yeah. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, since we finished Death Parade, I have my little jar here of the other animes, and Stephen is going to randomly pick the next anime that we will watch. So, Stephen, you want to give that a go?
Live. I'll put a drum roll going and everything.
Yeah.
And this will be season 2 of Inspired by a Weeaboo.
Did you get one?
I feel like I've got 2.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me see it. I want to read it.
I can't read it?
No.
Okay. Well, I picked one. It was folded, and I don't know what I picked.
He picked
it. So I hope it's a good one.
And I'm going to read it. It is... Oh, this is a good one. The Devil is a Part-Timer.
Okay.
I enjoy this one as well. So
yeah, I've heard you talk about it.
Yes.
I've heard other people talk about it.
Yes. We actually have a buddy named George who I would love to be on this show at some point, and this is one of the episodes, one of the animes that he enjoys.
Mm-hmm.
So, yay. So stay tuned for season 2 of Inspired by a Weeaboo, and it will be based around The Devil is a Part-Timer.
There you go. Yay.
Yes. So, woo! First season down. Whoop, whoop. And, like always, you can find us on Pencil and Paper Podcast Network. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. You can go to youtube.com/Pencil and Paper Production, wherever you find your podcast.
I'd like to add.
Yes.
For everyone who's listened for the entirety of this season, if you really enjoyed what you heard, let us know.
Yes, please.
Because I'm making this with Katrina.
Yes.
I'm doing my best. It's out there into the world. This has been an entire month. Okay?
Yeah.
You've gotten this for the entire month of July. It is August now when you're listening to this episode. So if you have enjoyed these bite-sized little podcasts compared to what I normally do, they're bite-sized.
Yeah.
I want to know if you're digging it. If you're an anime fan, I'm like, oh God, yeah, remember that episode, and you love reminiscing about it, or maybe you heard one and it was just something that really stuck with you and was like, I really want to go watch this now, and you have watched it and you've come back and you listen to all of them, whatever it is, that is, if any of this has struck you at all, even if you hate it, I just want to hear. I just want to know that this is something that struck a chord with someone, and you want to hear more. You want to hear season 2. You want to see where we go from here. Because, again, this was a random choose. I didn't know what we were going to be watching. You just found out right now, as I found out. So this is fun, I think. And so next time that we get to the end of The Devil is a Part-Timer, you're going to find out what the next anime is. If you have suggestions, we'll drop them in the can. Mix it up. We can do movies. We can do other shows. Just as long as it's anime related. We'd love to do stuff like that and have specials, because I'm sure a movie would take more than 20, 30 minutes to talk about.
Yeah, most definitely.
I don't know. I want to hear from anime fans out there. Because, again, I'm not you. I'm not the anime fan here. I'm trying to understand it. If I was wrong in anything that I said here, tell me why. I want to know why. You know,
Yeah.
if you think he is the greatest character in the history of anime and that he is not worthless, tell me why. That's all I'm saying. I just want to convey this because, you know, this was a passion project more for Katrina than me.
Yes.
But I wanted to do this for her. I wanted to try this idea. I had fun with it. This is a great show. Like I said, gave it 4 stars.
Yeah.
I'm willing to do more. I just want to know if people are interested in hearing it. And what can we do better if we faltered at any point? Or if you like it the way it is, just say, perfect. It's good.
Yes. Just let us know. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit us up. Eventually, you know, maybe there will be a Twitter page or something. I don't know. But yeah, just let us know how you feel about it and everything else. And if you have listened from episode technically 0 to episode 12, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, hopefully you're not just like banging your head against a wall or anything like that. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and everything else. And, you know, love hearing our beautiful voices. But
I work on it, yeah. I have been told 2 times that my voice is very nice. I don't hear it, but I was flattered by it. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. It made me feel good.
But
So if
yeah.
you think my voice is sexy, thank you.
Good job. But thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening to us yap about anime. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to do so many more, because right now the animes that I have in my little tin are animes that have shorter seasons and everything. So a lot of the bigger ones like Fairy Tail, Inuyasha, Naruto, those kinds of ones I've kind of been sitting on the back burner. They are like my all-time favorites, but they have so many freaking episodes that, you know, we're trying to get into a little bit here and a little bit there and save the bigger ones for a little later down the road.
A little later, as in when we have an audience.
Yes. We want to know we're not just kind of talking to ourselves.
Yeah, because I'm not doing 600 episodes of a show if no one's listening. If there's people out there clamoring, like if we're getting hit up every day, Inuyasha, I'll do it.
Oh, I'll do it in a fucking heartbeat.
So, but we got to hear the clamor first. You know,
Yes.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It's a commitment.
But like always, my Weeaboo family, we love you so much. Again, let us know if you love us back. And have a wonderful, amazing, fantastic night.
And I'm going to leave you with the theme song from Death Parade.
妄想と現実に一石を投じて個性を磨け結界悩むなんだよまた一つ消去頭からケツまでそれが我がエンタメだまだ死んじゃないさ紐解いたしゃナイチケットバスでもっと舞い上がって Everybody put your hands up さあフライ翼になれ見てみたいな宇宙になれる君今が成長期知る世界へ Everybody put your hands up
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.